giving you the real from A to Z surrounding the Dallas Cowboys. News, updates, rumors, transactions, takes, and more. So strap up, Cowboys Nation, and start your day off with A to Z Sports. Live with Will Steele.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go. Good morning, good people. Welcome to A to Z Sports Live. We are streaming live on YouTube, and of course, I am your host, Will Skywalker. Still, boom. The team has landed, and today we put a bow on the state of the unit. I think we're putting a bow on it because the Cowboys will begin training camp practice tomorrow. Yesterday, if you guys remember, we did our top 10 passing attacks the Cowboys defense will face, so it's only right. Today, we talk about the cornerback room. Really interesting room compared to how the Cowboys are going into it last year. So we will focus on the back end of the roster all the way to the starters in regards to the cornerback room. Also in the roundup, a lot went down. A lot went down yesterday across the league. I was hoping there would be some breaking news. Where's my breaking news button? Breaking news. The Dallas Cowboys, but that did not happen. But there were some things that did happen across the league that did pertain to the Cowboys, and we will briefly touch on that in the roundup. Plus good news as well coming out of the roundup before we jump into the cornerback room. But what's good with you, Bomb Squad? How we doing, man? How we doing?
Bomb Squad!
Y'all ready for this? Y'all ready for this Cowboys training camp coverage? It's already started. You know, I know the players like, damn, can I breathe? Can I walk off the bus and get to my dormitory and breathe? Nope. Soon as they walked off the bus, they got the microphones put in their face and the interview started. And we got some sound bites, or a sound bite from yesterday. No, do we have a sound bite? We have a quote from yesterday, put it that way, from one of the players that spoke with the media right off the bus. All right. And then we will talk to Pat on Friday about the first day of practice. So a little bit teaser for Friday as well. So let's get into today's show. Really easy, really simple. Shouldn't be too long for y'all, but we'll try to bring a punch to it. Appreciate you guys for being here and rocking out with your boy this morning. Let's get to it.
It's time! It's time! It's time!
It's time. It's time.
It is time for...
It's time for the morning roundup. Round 'em up, boys.
Let me talk to you.
Oh, let me talk to you, Cowboys Nation. I couldn't let this one go. So yesterday, I'm just chilling, and I see a notification pop up that the Raiders put Michael Gallup on the retired list. I'm like, okay, what does that even mean? If Michael Gallup retired, just say that. Well, a little bit more investigation there, and breaking news, Michael Gallup has retired. He signed with the Raiders at some point this offseason, and unfortunately for Gallup, he'll mostly be remembered for the Cowboys deciding to pay him after an ACL injury and shipping off Amari Cooper for absolutely nothing, quite literally nothing. Flat out, before we get into Gallup, one of the dumbest decisions that the Cowboys have made, I would say, in this decade. Yeah. And there's a long line of them, but I think that's right up there. Now, this isn't Gallup's fault. Remember, Gallup was surprised to get the call. He spoke with, I think it was Brad Sham and Chrissy Scales. He was like, man, I was sitting at rehabbing, and I got a phone call that they wanted to negotiate a contract. What you think Gallup going to say? No? So they signed him to the big deal. He gets his bread, and he obviously doesn't come close to living up to it. And Amari Cooper gets shipped off to Cleveland, and I hate to even use the term rejuvenated, because he rejuvenated his career in Dallas. He just continued to be a very steady number one wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns. Now, as for the Cowboys and Gallup, before he tore his ACL, Gallup had a lot of big plays for the Cowboys, man. He had some moments that we were all happy about, right? And he peaked in that 2020, 2019, those 2 years. That was peak Michael Gallup, and never could regain that after really it was the calf. And then he tore his ACL, and that was it. That was it for Michael Gallup. Didn't finish the season, the last 3 seasons, over 500 yards in any of them, and a couple touchdowns. I wish him the best. I do, in his retirement. But how wild is it that, you were relying on the 28-year-old retiree to be a starter in your offense just last season? The irony, though, in that is, after the Cowboys got down last year in the playoffs, Michael Gallup had like 100 yards. There's irony in that. But I wish him the best. I hope Michael Gallup finds happiness in retirement. I know that injury messed with him mentally and obviously physically. Never a good thing. You hate to see these players go out that way. Same thing with LVE. I would say for a 3rd round pick, it started off great, and obviously it tailed out for him. But happy retirement, Michael Gallup. On to the good news. So camp starts tomorrow. Today they have arrived. Tomorrow they'll do first practice around 10:45 in the morning. Actually 10:45 Central, I believe, is the presser. And then they'll practice a little bit after that. Todd Archer tweeted yesterday. The first part of the tweet was what we already knew. Trayvon Diggs will open camp on the active PUP list as he continues to recover from a torn ACL. Here's the good news. DeMarvion Overshown, John Stevens Jr., David Durden, for those who forget, the wide receiver last year, undrafted, Mozzie Smith and Luke Schoonmaker, who were all missing from action in OTAs and minicamp, they will all be ready to go. That is fantastic news. And for a lot of these players, Mozzie and Schoon specifically, they couldn't afford, and they cannot afford to miss practices. They can't afford to get hurt for a number of different reasons. But Demo, he obviously needs the reps as well, and Stevens Jr. coming off his torn ACL needs them. Think about this for a second. Demo rookie, Stevens rookie, David rookie, Mozzie rookie, Luke rookie. All these dudes were rookies last year, and only 2 of them played. So they need to be out there. And they will be, and that's amazing. I'm really going to be focused on DeMarvion Overshown and Stevens Jr. Mozzie and Schoon, they're going to get the kind of be real here. They're going. Let's be real. They're going to get the politic treatment. They're going to be out there. They're going to get the reps, and obviously we want to see them how they look with those reps, but. Stevens Jr. and Demo, they brought some excitement to training camp and preseason last year. So I'm really, really intrigued and interested to see how they are recovering from the said injury. As we talked about, Trayvon Diggs will not be out there. He will be on the PUP. He'll be there, right? He'll be there, but he will not be participating in practices. He'll be on the PUP list. He'll be on the side, rehabbing on the cords, all those good things like that. And at some point, he will be back. Hopefully, sooner rather than later, because he's good to go, not because he's been rushed back or anything like that. Only people that would know that is Trayvon Diggs, the trainers, the coaches, maybe. Well, all we can do is sit back and just hope for the best. And that's what I'm hoping for when it comes to Trayvon Diggs. Speaking of Diggs, we will briefly touch on him at the end of our cornerback review. Again, not a whole lot to get at because of where he is in his recovery, but obviously I do want to talk about the fit and all that in regards to this room. Let's work backwards, though. Let's first start off and talk about this scheme. Okay, I've been hammering home this Mike Zimmer scheme as a nerd of X's and O's and film during the season. When you really study Zim, that part stuck out the most to me, and that part is what I'm most excited about. And what aids that excitement is some of the players that are in this room. Again, I urge you to go back and look at the tail end of Zimmer's career in Minnesota, his run in Minnesota. They weren't a good defense, a lot of injuries, but primarily because they didn't have good defensive back play. And his scheme requires his corners, his safeties, high football IQ, and to be good. Let's just be honest. I mean, you could argue every scheme needs that, right? But there's an emphasis on these guys being smart and having the ability down in, down out. I think he's got, at the very least, a trio of starters that gives me confidence that they can get this scheme down. And then there's some guys in the farm system. We'll see what happens. But the Cowboys at this position, when you take a step back, they're fine. But then when you really zero in, I personally, like I told you guys before, would love to add somebody else in there. Now, they attempted to do that with Garyon Conley. Conley is one of the 2 UFL defenders that they signed. And, hey, Dallas signed one 2 years ago, went to the Pro Bowl or All Pro. Signed one last year, became an All Pro. They said, let's get 2 of them things. So they went to the UFL and signed 2 UFL players. Conley, to me, more of the riskier of the 2. I think he plays a tougher position. And I think he's in a room where, he's going to have to really claw. He's clearly the most controversial guy of the 2, right? Willie Harvey Jr. is the other. And then Garyon Conley is the cornerback the Cowboys signed out of UFL. He dealt with legal issues when he was with the Raiders, originally drafted in the first round. Ended up finishing with the Texans, only played a few seasons. Hasn't played in the NFL since, 2019? Stephen Jones looks at him and says, former first-round pick? Check. Experience in the league? Check. Cheap? Check. Checkmate. Catboy criteria? Fit. If there was a Catboy criteria Hall of Fame, that is what Garyon Conley would be in. Former first rounder, so they believe he has first round talent. Seen you do it once, can you do it again? The only thing he's missing, I wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame. Maybe the I wouldn't call him that either. Wouldn't put him in the Hall of Fame. But he fits damn near everyone. The only one he doesn't fit is injury. That's what Stephen Jones does. Stephen Jones loves a former first round pick, dealing with injuries, cheap, and has some experience. Conley checks for 3 of those 4 boxes. With that said, I don't expect much from him. I have 0 expectations. And if he provides competition, to me, that is a win in my book. Let's go. And if that competition, here's what I do expect, or I shouldn't say expect. Here's what I do hope. He at the very least pushes Nahshon Wright. If he can't do that, boy, we in trouble. Nahshon, well, he's in trouble. Not we, he. Nahshon Wright. You can forget that Nahshon Wright was a 3rd round pick. You can truly forget that. The Cowboys usually play, no matter how bad or unimpressive or small of an impact their 3rd round pick makes, they usually play. This guy didn't play. This guy was the second of 2 3rd round picks, or 3 3rd round picks, maybe the 3rd of 3 3rd round picks in 2021. And listen to this. This is what blows my mind about Nahshon Wright. He's outlasted John Ridgeway, Quentin Bohanna, Jabril Cox, Devin Harper, Kelvin Joseph. 2 defensive tackles that stopped the run, and 2 linebackers in a year where you didn't have no linebackers last year. Nahshon Wright has out-survived 4 or 5 of those players, and he barely plays. What? So I wonder if this is just the front office trying to save face. It's easy to say, oh, we can get rid of Kelvin Joseph, right? Not only was he not doing anything, but he had the off-field issues and he really didn't love the game. They could sell that to the Cowboys fans, right? I think they had a hard time selling themselves. Do we really want to cut our 3rd round pick? Look, with all due respect to you, Nahshon, your sponsor's not in this building anymore. I don't particularly think you're all that good. This is an entirely different scheme. He's going to have to show out, in my opinion, if he wants to climb this depth chart. Now, fortunately for him, Diggs will be out. There's a lot of young guys in front of him. He, crazy as this is going to sound, the start of camp, Nahshon Wright will be the 2nd longest tenured cornerback out on the field next to Jay Lou. That's crazy. Nahshon Wright, the 2nd longest tenured cornerback on the field to start camp because Trayvon Diggs is out. He might be 2nd, but he's like 5th in our hearts. The best bet he's got, right, to make this team is special teams. Nahshon Wright played 608 snaps in 3 years on special teams. Barely played any defensive snaps his rookie season, barely played any his 3rd year. Played a good bit in 2nd year. Remember that? His 2nd year, he filled in for the bust that is Kelvin Joseph, a.k.a. Boss Man Fat. Then he got benched for a couple journeymen. Then they got benched for Israel Mukuamu. They did the whole slot thing, moved Bland out and what have you. So I don't know if there's any Nahshon Wright fans in here, and I'm not trying to sour you on. I'm just keeping it a bean with them. I don't see the path that Nahshon Wright has to make this team. I don't usually stamp too much before camp because they go out there and they can ball out, and I'll come here and Nahshon can go make 2 pick sixes tomorrow. And we'll be like, hey, there you go. That's the start. But just kind of looking at the landscape of things, looking at him, looking at Zim, I don't see it, man. I don't see Nahshon really making his team. And if it's going to be special teams, I mean, I could find me a cornerback that can go run down on special teams. Hey, AG, by the way, am I hyping up Nahshon? Yeah. Hey, Roy, you in the building? I want to make sure you're listening to this. Let's keep it moving, man. Eric Scott Jr., Cowboys Nation, talk to me real quick, man. Talk to me. Eric Scott Jr., Cowboys traded up for him last year, right? Traded a future 5th round pick. Was it a 5th? Future day 3 pick, one of the 5th or 6th, to move up to get Eric Scott Jr. The very next year, his sponsor gone. But before we get to that part, goes out there, he makes the very first defensive play in the 2023 training camp, and boy, he is going off, wasn't we? Gets the pick on Dak. That starts the whole Dak Prescott pick thing. And then gets a pass breakup, maybe the next day or whatever it was, and slowly but surely started to fizzle out. Which, look, he's a 5th round rookie transfer. Was it South Missouri? Me personally, was not expecting Eric Scott to come in here and just ball out. So gets to training camp. I'm sorry, gets to the preseason, and he just pretty much is non-existent. He doesn't carry over the start of the training camp into the preseason. He played a lot, only registered 1 forced incompletion in those 3 games, and allowed 112 quarterback rating. Now, you can say, Sky, it's preseason, man. What you talking about? You're right, it's preseason, and he just wasn't doing anything. So you get to the season, and Eric Scott doesn't play a single snap on defense. He's a part of that rookie class that didn't play a whole lot. Outside of Schoonmaker and Mozzie, the rookie class barely played. Awesome barely played. Deuce barely played. Eric Scott, right? Like, these guys didn't get a chance to get out there, and for good reason for some of them. So year 2, Dan Quinn is not here. His cornerbacks coach is still here, but Dan Quinn, the guy who probably was pounding the table for, and Eric Scott, isn't here. I'm gonna be honest with you. I just don't know how to feel about him in said scheme, because when we were looking into Eric Scott last year when he was drafted, it was more the physical potential for me. I really didn't see a heady corner. I didn't see some playmaking corner. I saw a physically gifted corner, right? Has the stature, the size, the weight, the speed. He's physically gifted. If you follow what I've been saying all off season, you can be physically gifted in this scheme. It's not all that matters. So for me, I have to put Eric Scott off to the side and say, all right, young fella, let's get you out there and let's see what you got with this scheme. Because your man's not in this building no more. You weren't able to really show much outside of the first couple practices at training camp. So now we're going to run this thing back. And there's a lot of fans who thought, hey, man, they're going to cut Eric Scott. I still believe there's a bit of a bias, as it should be with some of your draft picks. When I say bias, I don't mean favoritism. I mean, hey, am I giving up on my draft picks? I don't care if we switch coaches. I'm not giving up on him in one season. So he has the chance to go out there and prove that I belong. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to you guys like I know what he is. Some of y'all may. Some may say, hey, Eric Scott's amazing. He's going to be great. I hope you're right. I just need to see something from him because coming out of college, I don't think he was better than the next guy coming out of college in Kalen Carson. Kalen Carson's college film was better to me than Eric Scott's. Kalen Carson's fit is better to me than Eric Scott's. And as we stand right now with no veteran guy coming in here, and we haven't seen a lick of practice yet, if I had to put money on one of these guys taking the 4th spot, to me it's Kalen Carson. Here are some of my notes on Carson back when we broke him down after the draft. I had a sticky physical corner, doesn't back down from a challenge. The tape that a little bit of the tape we'll watch today is against Keon Coleman, Florida State. I like to tell people, go watch that one because Coleman, obviously 33rd overall pick for the Bills, big receiver, 6'4", right? And he didn't back down. Now, he didn't win every rep against him, but he made it a challenge for most of the day against Keon Coleman. I talk about that click trigger ability, right? Click and close. Dude, he has that in spades. He fires down and he'll run through wide receivers. The whole trying to block this dude in screens, maybe because he doesn't look big. This isn't Jalen Ramsey, but skinny. Might look like, whatever, I get hands on him, I'm good to go. Nah, he'll run through you. He's not afraid to stick his nose in there in the run game. And one of the things that McClay talked about with him is his tackling ability. He will come up and light you up, and he can wrap up and tackle. Now, the knock on him out of college, he really wasn't a ball guy in the sense of a turnover guy. He didn't have a lot of those. Only 3 interceptions in 4 seasons, but he did get his hands on the ball a lot. He had 26 pass deflections. The irony in that is Dan Quinn, you might say, well, they want you to get the rock, young fella, and you haven't done that in college. Mike Zimmer, though. Look, every defensive coordinator emphasizes taking the ball away. But Zim said, I'm not going to put that above everything because too many times I saw on film, you guys were just trying to take the ball away and you wouldn't be in the right spots. And one thing Zim doesn't like is an undisciplined defense, an undisciplined player. So he's saying, remain disciplined, play within the scheme to the ball, and the turnovers will get there. I think Kalen Carson fits that. He fits the mold. He's smart. It's another thing that McClay talked about. And if you go listen to one of his interviews, I think he did it with Windy City. He really sound impressive to me, like a football player that has a high football IQ, and the film backs that up. And McClay talked about how essentially he passed the whiteboard test. And I think that was a big talking point with this position because of Mike Zimmer, what he requires at the position. Now, with all that said, with as much as I like Kalen Carson, we talk about not rushing injury guys out there. I also don't want to rush young cornerbacks in Mike Zimmer's defense. If he's needed because the bodies, the injuries, and things like that, it is what it is. He has no choice. And to me, he's the next guy up for me. Of this group, you throw him in a fire if need be. It's the last part. I don't want it to be needed because I don't want the young guys' confidence to be hit. Now, this ain't an A-B situation. I don't think this guy got way more of a dog in him. But you listen to former players. You listen to Zim himself. One of the mistakes he said he made at the end of his tenure in Minnesota was throwing out his young rookies into the fire and really just basically chewing them up because they weren't consistently doing what he asked. And that's going to happen with rookies. So if Carson is out there, I hope it's because he is exceeding expectations for a 5th-round rookie corner and not because we have no other choice and, guys are bad or injuries happen. So I think there is a give or take when it comes to the young guy. Love the upside, love the fit. Hell, I might even love it more towards the end of the year if he had to get thrown out there. Right away, though, that's where I'm like, all right, let's bring in some insurance. Big talking point is Diggs not, being available, right? A lot of people say, hey, man, I don't even want him out there until week 9, 10 or whatever. Well, if that's the case, you absolutely have to bring someone else in here. Have to. So that is the back half of the cornerback room. Garyon Conley, Nashawn Wright, Eric Scott Jr., Kalen Carson. Probably a far cry from what it was a couple seasons ago. Just last year, if you really look at it, when you had a guy like Jordan Lewis coming off the bench. You had 2 All-Pros as your starter, and what we know now is another All-Pro in the slot. Oh, but there's still that former All-Pro Defensive Player of the Year just lurking out there. Now, I believe Xavier Howard is off the market. Y'all remember I made this graphic weeks ago before he was signed. I think he's off the market. Either way, I'm only showing this to show Stephon Gilmore. Bomb Squad, where are you guys at with Gilly? I am fully on the bring him back train. Are you guys interested in bringing back Stephon Gilmore, or you're like, hey, man, he's 34. I'm good? Because I never really asked that. I've seen some folks in the chat say, hey, yeah, let's bring him back. But I'm pretty sure there's some, because there was some during the season. Don't go hide now. There was some during the season that really wasn't a fan of Stephon Gilmore's game. Professor O, get Gilly. Go get Gilly, says Mitris. Yeah, I don't see the harm. It's not going to cost you $10 million, I don't think. You got the bread anyway. You collected a couple dollars from the cuts, the June 1st cut of Michael Gallup. So you got the bread anyway to go get him. And if you're truly trying to win, I tell you this all the time. I'm all about adding as much depth and talent as possible within reason, right? Because you can't pay everybody. But I don't think at this point in the offseason you're paying a lot of money for anybody. No, I seen the first no. I'm be honest with you. I am more interested to know why someone would be out on Gilly. I am interested in that one. How would he look in Zim's defense? Oh, I think he'd fit like a glove, bro. Again, a lot of what Zim's defense requires is smarts. And you listen to Trayvon Diggs last year, he was like, man, Gilly got here and I was learned a lot. Think about Gilly played under Bill Belichick in that defense for years. So, yeah, he could definitely come in here and fit this scheme, in my opinion. Definitely because they mix it up. It's not one specific scheme, and it's not 90-some% man where Gilly will get a little bit in trouble on those crossers. So Andre, are you out? I just saw you said he's too slow. So that means you're out? Gilly want to start? Why wouldn't he start here? You can move Deron Bland back inside. And if you don't want to do that, you can say, well, now we can take our time with Trayvon Diggs. To me, starting in the league nowadays is when it comes to corners, there's 3. There's not 2. There's 2 boundaries and there's a slot. That's a starting cornerback. So I think he can come here and start. Why not? Now, I mentioned scheme changes. I mentioned mixing things up. Jordan Lewis also talked about that. The Cowboys and J. Lou elected to run this thing back. And now that we kind of have a big picture of what the cornerback situation is, I think it was an important signing. Now, he's a controversial player to a lot of y'all. So, call him an important signing. To some who call him trash, he's whack, whatever, that doesn't matter. But when you look at the landscape of the position, if you don't have a Jordan Lewis here, Trayvon Diggs is potentially not to start the season like some of you guys want. I think you would be in extreme dire straits at the cornerback position. J. Lou provides at the very least some veteran comfort. Although I personally believe he's another veteran player that fits this defense really well. Now, we can go back and talk about 2023. A lot of you didn't like his 2023 year. I thought for a dude coming off of his career-threatening injury, who was the 4th corner, got thrown into the mix fairly quickly. Wasn't supposed to, but he did. I personally think he held it down about as good as a 4th corner could. And as the season went on, he got better. He eventually turned into one of your better run defenders. Towards the end of the season, he started getting his hands on the ball, making plays, and going into the playoffs. You could argue he was one of your more complete corners as he was getting healthier. But nonetheless, he's back, and I think he provides some good depth. He's going to start. I mean, unless something crazy happens, Jordan Lewis is going to be your slot corner. And I think he really, really fits this thing. He said that, actually, to Pat Walker and the media members yesterday off the bus. They asked him, hey, J. Lou, why'd you elect to stay in Dallas instead of following Dan Quinn like a lot of your other former teammates, right? Dan Quinn, you re-signed with him. He wanted you back. You played under him for 3 seasons. Why didn't you go? Jordan Lewis said, because this scheme fits me better. He also said this back in minicamp, maybe. Can't remember what it was, minicamp or OTAs. And this to me was profound.
We're just gonna mix it up. It's not just gonna be a few coverages where offense can I guess pin what you're doing. So I feel like it's gonna be a lot of chess matches out there when we go into play. So I feel like it's gonna be really good for our guys that just not mixing it up and being unpredictable. So I think that's gonna make plays. That's gonna help us make a lot more plays. And
that didn't really get a lot of buzz when he said it. We talked about it on the show. No, but we want to talk about podcasts and we want to talk about contracts all the damn time. That to me was more profound than any of podcasts or contract talks. Basically just told you what I hinted at. Was it last season or year before? I couldn't remember. I think it was last season. He said, we're not just going to have, what did he say, 1 or 2 coverages where offenses know where we're going to be. Let me calm down. Because I'm not trying to turn every defensive conversation into talking about Dan Quinn. But do you understand why I would be frustrated with the defensive coordinator? No, I'm not laying the loss of the playoffs on his face. I'm not doing that. Everybody sucked that game. Your offense came out looking trash. The team wasn't ready. The defense from start to finish was horrendous. The offense, like I said, it didn't get going until later. The whole thing was a mess. But y'all, the breadcrumbs were being dropped throughout the season. Hence why I didn't go into the playoffs with the confidence of this defense. But to hear a veteran corner who's a very smart corner state, yeah, we're going to mix it up now. It's going to be a lot of different coverages. Excited for that. It's not going to be 1 or 2 coverages that opposing offenses know what we're going to do. I don't know about y'all. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of hearing that on offense, defense for the last 15 years. Whether it's Jason Garrett, whether it's Tony Romo, whether it's Rod Marinelli or Dan Quinn or Dak Prescott. I'm sick of that. I don't ever hear any other team, former players, whatever, come out and say, oh, yeah, we knew what they were going to do. About other teams. It's always just the Cowboys, or maybe my ears are just pinned to the Cowboys. Maybe it happens throughout the league. Maybe other teams talk about how Shanahan, is super predictable and easy to game plan against. Maybe they talk about Andy Reid being so predictable. Maybe they talk about who's the defensive coordinator there for Kansas City? Spags. Oh man, Spags only runs 1 or 2 coverages. No, he doesn't. But it's always here, man. Anyway, I'm done with my rant. Jay Lewis confirmed now twice. We've listened to other DBs. I think it was Malik Hooker brought it up. They're going to switch this thing up. We showed you the film. I showed you the film. I'm not going to keep doing it. But we showed you how they play different combo coverages. There'll be some quarters. There'll be press. There'll be man. There'll be a lot of too high. Changing of the picture. I'm so excited to see how this group adapts to it, because I think this trio right here, these are really smart cornerbacks. Experienced cornerbacks and talented cornerbacks, but really smart ones that can make this thing work. So with all that said, I think Jordan Lewis was an extremely important player to bring back, given this is what's behind him. Given Trayvon Diggs could potentially not be ready. I agree, Toxic. Only one constant. You're right, man. All right, let's wrap this up with DaRon Bland and Trayvon Diggs. Arguably, no. Let me take that word arguably out. The best 2 playmaking cornerbacks in the league. I think the best duo of playmaking cornerbacks in the league. Somehow, some way, they don't make the top 10, though. But that's neither here nor there. DaRon Bland put on a year for the ages that feels like already just put to the wayside. I mean, I don't think we truly appreciated the season as much as it needed to be. 9 picks, 5 pick sixes, NFL record, by the way. For as much as people try to do the whole Trayvon Diggs thing, oh man, he was getting work. Wait, you could bring up the touchdown throw in Philly. Amazing throw, great throw. You could bring up a couple plays and cornerbacks get burned. You could bring up the Seahawks game. But for 17 games, when quarterbacks targeted him, it was a 50.9 completion rating. Or rating, and a 54% completion rate with 9 interceptions and 5 pick sixes. Now, I'm mostly talking to Cowboy haters, right? Because most Cowboy fans, we appreciated this thing. But in what world would you look at that and say an overrated or whatever word you want to use? Also take into account.
We're just going to mix it up.
No. I know we're going to mix it up, J-Lo. Also taking into account, he prepared all offseason to play in the slot. Diggs goes down. Gets thrown out there week 3, really with no prep. All pro on the boundary. So this begs the question. I'm not as torn on this. Like I'm fine whatever to decide to do with him. But where would you put Deron Bland? Now, right now, he's going to play on the boundary. I mean, I don't think you have a choice but to put Deron Bland on the boundary. But say Diggs is ready to go by week 1, and they go out and get a corner. There's been a bit of a conversation within Cowboys Nation. Oh, Deron Bland should play in the slot. Deron Bland should play in the boundary. I think Deron Bland is so damn good, he'll be that good wherever you decide to put him. So I don't really have a fight, really. He wasn't all pro on the boundary, but, I mean, dude was a pro bowler on the inside, too. We don't know if he would have ascended to all pro status because he got moved quickly. But you go back and watch the first 2 weeks, you go back and watch what he did his rookie season. I mean, dude was a playmaker inside, too. So where would you put him, though? Toxic, leave him out on the boundary. Special K, that's true too, man. They probably just hate the young man because he's not with them. Guru says, should a Diggs or Bland get hurt, a rookie Carson would have to go outside. Yeah, if I remember, one of the coaches was talking about Carson. I think he's moonlighting out there right now. I think he's a slot, but they did mention the fact that he can do both. So that's another reason where, hey, if he's going to be practicing at both, that's a lot early on. Me personally, when I broke him down months ago, I looked at him as he could potentially be another staple slot guy for me. Talking about Kalen Carson, by the way, y'all. I think he could be, at one point, was it Avonte Maddox had a 3-4 year run. McDuffie's that guy now. Mike Hilton's my guy. I love Mike Hilton's game on the inside. In fact, he kind of reminds me of Mike Hilton. Mike Hilton, ultra aggressive slot corner, blitz him. He can get some sacks. He can make plays on the ball. Was a big addition to that Bengals defense during their Super Bowl run, I think it was. I'm fine if he turns into that. But without Diggs, if they don't go sign anybody, Kalen is going to have to be the guy. Although I view him as the J. Lou replacement for the future. Outside, I'm putting Bland at nickel. Got to stay outside considering the season he had. Let him stay there, says B47. I understand that completely, right? Like, it's kind of the opposite side of the ball conversation with Tyler Smith we were having. Tackle, guard. He just had an all-pro guard. Why would you move him to tackle? But he also had good tape at tackle. Well, Bland just had an all-pro season on the boundary. Why would you move him into the slot? Yeah, Mike Hilton cold, dog. And then finally, we got our guy, Trayvon Diggs. Jordan Lewis, when he spoke yesterday, he called Diggs a cornerback savant, a genius. And I'm like, man, that makes me feel good because last year I put a video out on Diggs. I was like, I think Trayvon Diggs is the smartest cornerback in the National Football League. A lot of people after the 11 interception year, and I get it, aggressive, takes chances. That's fair. He was that. But then in 2022, he understood I have to adapt. Teams are going to try. And he did. You ain't hear nothing about no yards. He just became, to me, a very solid a shutdown corner. He was a guy that team said, why the hell would I go over there when they got Joe Schmo, Boss Man Fat, Nashawn Wright, Xavier Rhodes on the other side? Why would I go over there? So they said, we leaving him alone. Comes out in 2023, picks right up. You want to test him? Pick. He's hitting, he's covering. He looks like all pro, all world Trayvon Diggs. And the play that I emphasize about his how sharp he is was the very first week against the Giants. You just saw, it was a lot of little small things, but you just saw him doing little smart nuances of the position that put him in position to make a play on the ball, pick six, DeRon Bland. And that's stuff you always see with Trayvon Diggs. You see it every single week. And a lot of people, I think, they say, oh, well, he's just guessing us. No, he is not. Not at all. So to hear Jay Lou talk about, hey, man, he a savant. He's a genius. He said when Trayvon Diggs is on it, he's one of the best defensive players in the league. He ain't even say just corners, defensive players. So when it comes to fit, man, Trayvon, man, I really hope he gets his feet up under him sooner rather than later. Because if so, he's a type of corner in this scheme that Mike Zimmer can game plan around. I don't think he's ever had that. He's had good corners. But hear me out. It may not be this year because of the injuries. And listen to me when I say this. A healthy Trayvon Diggs with the Micah Parsons of the world's in front of him. Now with solid safety play behind him. And Mike, not you, DeRon. In Mike Zimmer's scheme, I think he has the ability to put a game plan around him in the same mode. Don't y'all beat me up. As Darrelle Revis. Listen to me when I say I prefaced it with everything so y'all wouldn't think I'm calling this man Darrelle Revis. Pass rush, a safety now, safety play, and just the ability, the smarts, who he is in this scheme. You can game plan week in, week out to say, okay, he's a weapon. We don't have to do a whole lot over there, and we can game plan in that way to where now let's give extra help to the slot. Let's double team this tight end. Let's take out Devontae Smith. Let's blitz the linebacker on his side because I know if they try to hot route this thing, Trayvon Diggs is going to pick 60. Nah, Dion. I'm talking Darrelle Revis because the way that I almost said Rob Ryan, the way that Rex Ryan game plan around Darrelle Revis, I don't know how many cornerbacks in the game that's happened since. I mean, back in that time frame, Champ Bailey was one of those guys. Maybe you could argue Legion of Boom, but I think that was more the entire secondary in general. I think Diggs, healthy, obviously, the ability, the scheme, plus a Micah Parsons in front of him, you can do some special game planning things a la Darrelle Revis. He's like that, man. He just got to be healthy. Hey, Toxic, don't sleep on it. He was stepping up in the run department too. They came at him about, hey, Trayvon Diggs won't come up and tackle. He came out tackling in 2022. And nobody was talking about Trayvon Diggs tackling. But 2021, they was running at him, sure. But again, if my knock on my all-pro corner is that he's a suspect tackler in the run game, man, dude, I don't care. Not if he's getting 25 interceptions in 3 seasons, and shutting down sides of the field. That's what you're paid to do out there. You're not paid to be Lawrence Taylor, Ray Lewis. You make the tackles when you need to make tackles. But Trayvon Diggs, DeRon Bland, Jordan Lewis, to me, I think this is a fantastic trio of corners for this scheme. Now you bring in a Gilly, it's even better in my opinion. And I'm still leaning there. Oh, the defense as a whole, Tom? Yeah, man. I think they'll get better there. But yeah, it was a rough season tackling last year. Well, tackling in the hole, let me say that. Because I think statistically, they were one of the better missed tackle teams. But that's a whole nother discussion. So there you have it, Cowboys Nation. Our State of the Unit review on corners. Garyon Conley, Wright, Eric Scott, Carson will round out the bottom portion. Well, I shouldn't say the bottom portion. The reserves. And Trayvon, Duran, and Jordan Lewis will complete your starters. Now, obviously, there are more on this roster. I just didn't feel the need to really dive into these players. But I'll list the names, at least for some of you guys who may believe in these dudes. Here we go. There's still Sheldrick Redwine on this roster. There's still Josh DeBerry. Not sure who that guy is. There is Redwine is the safety. My apologies. There is CJ Goodwin, but I don't ever list CJ Goodwin as a corner. He doesn't list CJ Goodwin. One of the things when I interviewed him years ago that had me cracking up, he was like, "Hey, dog, don't put me out there. That's not where I make my money. That's not how I feed my family. Don't put me out there." So you got CJ Goodwin, you got Josh Butler, and you got Josh DeBerry. Those are the other cornerbacks that are listed on the depth chart here. So I don't really see any of these guys making waves from a cornerback standpoint. CJ will make the team on special teams. They may do the whole goofy, we're going to cut you and bring you back thing. I remember the one year they had no backup quarterbacks. They had no long snapper. I want to say they didn't even have a kicker or something. They did one of them tricky things, but it was one of the wink, wink. Hey, we're going to cut you, but we're bringing you back. They'll probably do the same thing with CJ. Probably do the same thing. That's a good question. The Guru it says, will Diggs move around to the opposing team's best receiver or stay exclusively on one side? I don't know that you need to. Now, if say you didn't have a Deron Bland, then that might have to happen, you know. But if Deron Bland is available and healthy, I think you can play size for the most part, unless there's just a really good matchup for Diggs, right? Like Terry McLaurin. I don't give a damn how well Deron Bland is playing. Put Diggs on Terry McLaurin and it's shut down city. You know? Scary Terry got him one time his rookie year, and it's been a wrap ever since. But in all seriousness, though, he gets back, he's healthy. Deron Bland is out there. You don't normally see Zimmer, at least from what I was watching, their corners just flipping a whole bunch. I don't know if it's as exclusive as, say, the LOB, where you had old boy playing like 98% of the snaps on one side. But maybe there's, hey, strong side in this specific call, we're going to have Diggs. So if they have a tight end lined up here, we'll have Diggs over there. But I don't know that they'll need to. But it is a good question. It's something to monitor. Maybe we won't get the answer until the season. CJ better values than Wright and Scott. I mean, yeah. CJ to me has the potential to be the next Matthew Slater. Now, obviously, Slater got like 6 rings or whatever, but he's one of the best special teams players in the National Football League. That block punt that you saw in week 1, that was CJ. That was him pointing out the flaws in the kick team and the how to. And then Wanye executed. So good stuff today, Cowboys Nation. Likely to wrap up the series. We'll see. There's only 2 positions we didn't hit, I think. 2 skill positions, wide receiver, running back. And a lot of that is because we've been having the running back conversation in-depthly almost weekly. So I don't know if we'll go there. But I also kind of wanted to save it because maybe we'll get a little bit more answers during camp. So Same thing with receiver. If we're going to get more answers with the receiver and running back position during camp, and then we can revisit, right? And have a different conversation, not the same conversation at the running back position. A conversation with more information. Let me say that. Let me just check here, make sure we good to go. I didn't even notice B Bird was up in here. B Bird dropped 5.
Super chat.
He said any other team in the position that the Cowboys are in would bring Gilmore back as insurance for Diggs not being ready and potential future injuries. Agreed. I am a fan of Ahkello Witherspoon's game. I like the fit with Zimmer. He played in a scheme that did a whole lot of changing the pictures. So this will be very easy for him, I think, to adjust to. But Stephon Gilmore. He was good for you last year. He's one of those veterans where they will respect him in that room. And the room is still really, really young outside of Jordan Lewis. And you're right. Most teams make these type of signings, and he will sign with the team that's looking for help at some point. And I don't think he's one of those veterans that will back down from camp. Didn't feel like that type of me. But he is recovering from the shoulder injury, so all the more reason why I think you can get Stephon Gilmore for the cheap. Shouts out to the bro, Footster King in the building. You ready, bro? We finally here. We'll have some real football to talk. Well, you guys will tomorrow. I'll be on prior to practice, but got a special one for you. Me and Vach. We're kind of going to put a bow on the pre-camp off season, talking about this roster, and then Friday we'll be back. And we'll be talking to Patrick Nosey Walker about what he saw down at camp. We'll have all the camp updates for Friday. We'll come back Monday and follow it up because we probably won't be able to touch on everything. And it's here, man. We are here. The first preseason games in a few weeks. Football will officially be back then, man. I agree, Special K. We need to get that round table popping. Need to get that round table popping. All right. Good stuff today, Cowboys Nation. I appreciate y'all for sticking with me as I push through this thing. Pretty straightforward show today. Got a busy day planned, so I wanted to make sure I got the quality of the show out there first before I just went on into the abyss about whatever. But we got through it, man. Tomorrow, come on back. Me and Vosh will be rocking. We'll be talking about the 53-man roster and seeing who pre-camp-wise we think will make this thing. So let me go ahead and press the button.
Push the goddamn button. Push the goddamn button.
Yeah, I made an oath to myself, Hall of Fame Cowboys fan. I said I would not talk about CD Lamb or Dak Prescott contract stuff until something worthy is there to talk about. Every day it's something that does not matter, something that we already knew. But yeah, CD Lamb won't be there, but we knew that though. Hopefully it gets done. We out of here though. Love y'all. Peace. No problem, Rolo. No problem. Yeah.